Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Pop Cult X, your go-to show for all things pop culture from Gabe and I, Danny's Gen X point of view. Thank you so much for tuning in again to our show. If you didn't see on our social medias, there's one thing that I'm really excited about and really happy about, and Gabe, you know this. It's our approval for press badges at WonderCon. It's something that's really exciting to me for some strange reason. It almost feels like it validates what we're doing here on the show, that we're an official. Exactly. It legitimizes us. We're no longer the bastard child. Yeah, I like that. So thank you everyone for your continued support. We'll be sure to see you at WonderCon if you're going to go. Yeah, just really exciting.
Yeah, well, we'll probably have to do like a live something there, right?
Oh, we should. That'd be kind of cool. Just like a live Instagram or something.
Last year, was it last year or the year before, I ran into Ed at WonderCon.
Okay.
So he's a previous guest that we could talk to.
Ed Luce, yeah.
Terry might be there.
We'll have to hit up everyone that we've talked to see who's going and just get some
another maybe future guest that also I met at WonderCon.
Okay.
So you know who I'm talking about, I think, but I don't want to spoil it yet. WonderCon. So there's going to be a lot of people that are, Comic-Con and WonderCon are where, the intersection of everything pop culture when it comes to comic books, writers, artists, TV, film, all of that stuff. So a lot of cool people. So I'm really excited. Hopefully we can meet up with some old friends. Maria Wolf might be there. I know she definitely is at Comic-Con. So we might meet up with some old friends. So
that'd be fun.
Looking forward to it. I just realized that I look like a member of Los Lobos for some reason today.
Nothing wrong with that. Los Lobos is a great band.
I just bought an album, and so tell me I'm wrong.
You do. You could fit right in there.
Yeah. Anyway. I caught a reflection of myself, and so I had to think about it. But speaking of music, last night was the Grammy Awards. Did you get a chance to watch?
I did not watch any of it. I heard some reactions.
Yeah.
Two things that really stood out to me, but I don't know if you want me to tell my things first, because probably some of them are in line with what you're going to say.
We'll go back and forth. So, what was the number one thing that you heard?
One thing that really stood out to me was Viola Davis winning the Grammy for her audiobook. And now she is another member of the EGOT. She is now an EGOT. So congratulations to her. I think that's was the biggest thing that really stood out to me was that.
Yeah.
Like I said, I didn't really watch it.
So another record breaker was Beyonce has now won the most Grammys of any person.
Oh, wow.
So I think she has won 19, 20, something ridiculous like that.
That's crazy.
So she was a big winner. One of the other things that I think that the internet is buzzing about is Sam Smith, his performance at the Grammys. He, I think, kind of leaned into the controversy of his song Unholy. A lot of people are, saying it's evil, he's gay, they are non-binary. Kim Petras, who is the co-singer on the song, is a transgender woman. So obviously people have opinions about that. They really leaned into it. They came out almost in a satanic, all red.
Nice.
Had some bondage necklace on. He had at one point had horns on his top hat. They had two very famous drag performers, Violet Chachki and Gottmik, performing with them. And so I really enjoy that. I like when people push people's buttons. Madonna is actually the one that introduced them to the audience that they were about to perform. And she said, when you're pushing people's buttons, or when you're being called, evil or dangerous or things like that, that means you're doing something good. And I happen to agree. I think that when people start pushing back about, rights for everyone, and we need people like Sam Smith to kind of push the boundaries further and kind of push back. And I think that's what he did. And it was really entertaining. And I loved it. Noah Trevor, who was a host, said, he pretended to be on the phone with his mom and said, my mom warned me about Hollywood, which I consider the ongoing joke that, everyone in Hollywood worships Satan or is a worshiper. it's such a ridiculous like thing that I love that they made fun of that and sort of leaned into that rumor or that controversy. I think he even like kind of flashed like an Illuminati kind of symbol at one point. There's a lot of artists that do that like know that there's rumors about them and then sort of lean into it and kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge kind of thing. So I always appreciate when they do that because it's so stupid. It's
Yeah.
um, rumors are just ridiculous, and they're especially when they're unfounded. So that was a big thing. Bad Bunny had a big moment last night. He performed. He did win an award, a Grammy last night, but everyone was like kind of up on their feet dancing when he performed. Um, Other winners were Taylor Swift, I believe, Beyonce, Brandy Carlisle won, and then Best New Artist, who I was really am excited to hear about because I am not aware of her, but Samara Joy. She's a jazz singer and sort of in the line of Sarah Vaughan, sort of in that sort of sound, or Dinah Washington. She has an amazing voice. I was listening to her last night prior to going to sleep, and if you're a fan of jazz, definitely check her out. She won for Best New
Artist, right? Yeah.
And so she's great. Some of the other people, Lizzo won for About Damn Time for Best Record, which was really cool to see because she has started to symbolize, I think, like a real positivity amongst the negativity in music industry. She really sings upbeat songs. She tries to be really positive. Her speech was about that, saying that when Prince died, she kind of vowed to make uplifting, positive music that was fun. And she's really done that. And I kind of commend her for sticking to her guns. One of the biggest probably upsets of the night was for Best Song. If you haven't heard, have you heard who won, first of all?
I looked at the list briefly, yeah. So I was kind of like, wow, really?
Yeah. So for those who haven't, the nominees are Beyonce, Harry Styles, Lizzo, Taylor Swift, Jay-Z, Steve Lacy, Adele, Kendrick Lamar, huge people, right? Popular, and Bonnie Raitt, and Bonnie Raitt won for Just Like That.
Right.
And I about died. I thought it was so great that all these young people, that I like, don't get me wrong, but the songs are like 18 writers, producers, and all this stuff. And Bonnie Raitt was like, best song written, Bonnie Raitt. And you kind of have to respect that one person wrote the song and it was, respected as best song of the year. Obviously, these awards are, you kind of take them with a grain of salt. Like, is it the best song? It's up to your own personal opinion. But she's been like a rad, cool chick, like since forever, since we were kids.
Middle school, yeah.
Yeah, she's just a really cool blues, kind of a singer-songwriter. And so I was glad to see her to win that.
Yeah. I remember hearing her, I think it was on like VH1 a lot, listening to whenever getting ready for school, my mom would have VH1 on in the morning for some reason. When I wanted MTV, she had VH1, but I heard a lot of Bonnie Raitt songs. So her and Katie Lang were on like repeat.
But Katie Lang was a really great singer as well.
Oh yeah,
I miss them. There. I mean, I feel like when we were going to high school, there was such a good mixture of music. Like we had like Katie Lang, we had mixed with Nirvana or mixed with Tori Amos and
Melissa Etheridge, and
there was just like it was so like you could just skip from different genre to genre, and now everything is just all homogenized. But before I even get started on like my I'm going to stop myself. But that was pretty much like most of the Grammy stuff that I kind of caught. What was the other thing that caught your attention?
Two other things that caught my attention. First was when I was perusing the winner list. I didn't know Ozzy Osbourne had released a new music, but he won like 2 awards, I think.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, for like Best Alternative Album and then Best Metal Performance or something like that. And then the other one that really stood out, at least that I saw caught attention on Twitter, was Harry Styles winning Album of the Year and then subsequently going out and doing a very lackluster performance. So I didn't catch it, so that's just what I'm hearing. I thought
his performance was fine. I'm not the biggest Harry Styles fan. My niece is. I've mentioned that before. Savannah's like his number one fan. I think that a lot of people were disappointed that Beyonce didn't win for Renaissance because it is such a good album. That's the thing with the award shows, is that it's based off of people who vote, who are part of the Academy.
Right.
And their opinion is just like everyone else's. It can be varied. They could think one thing is better than the other, and more people just happen to vote for Harry than Beyonce at this time. But my vote would have been for Beyonce. I think Harry is a talented man. I think, I don't begrudge his talent. But trying to listen to his whole album, there's like pieces that I like, whereas Beyonce's album, I can listen basically from beginning to end. There is a little bit of an originality thing when it comes to Beyonce's album, because there is so much mixed in. Like, she has a lot of different artists, like remixed, sampled in it, that it does kind of evoke your nostalgia. So maybe that's why I like it a little bit more, is because I think she has like Donna Summer, Grace Jones, Khalees was on there, Big Frida. There's so Madonna, like so many different things like remixed in her music, that it's so like layered that, like, do you like it because it's a really good album, or is it like kind of nostalgic? But at the end of the day, it's just a really good dance album. So high energy. I think today we were trying to get Beyonce tickets. We were not successful. So I probably won't be going to see her on tour. But that was like the big news from the Grammys. The performances, I think Sam Smith stuck out for me. Bad Bunny. And pretty much that's it, I think. Oh, and the hip hop, there was a hip hop tribute of like 50 years of hip hop that had LL Cool J. I mean, there was just a laundry list of rappers. Salt and Peppa, Too Short, the Ghetto Boys.
Wasn't Busta on there?
Busta Rhymes doing like his rapid fire rapping. Some of the people were like okay, some were really good, some are legends and iconic. It was a lot of fun. I feel like the Grammys, the production of that little thing wasn't as good as what it could have been. The set for the Grammys was kind of lackluster. I feel like I've seen better, the lineup being somewhat the same, but like better production and giving them more time to shine. This was like really quick. They didn't really introduce them all that well. Queen Latifah was there. They did a good job. I think they could have done a little bit better job producing the whole number itself. Ice-T came out. So, I mean, it was really cool, but they could have done a better job.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get that email sent to the producers of the Grammys for next year. Here are our notes for you.
Yeah. Yeah, the other fun thing that kind of occurred is like you saw a lot of people just being themselves. Like Doja Cat was like doing shots. Ben Affleck is famously making like bored faces. Like I kind of curious of like, when does Ben Affleck have fun? Because he always looks like he's sad and bored and depressed. And it's like, when does he ever have fun? Like, he has to have fun, but I just never see it. It just always seems like he's always bored and over it. I don't know. Beyonce showed up late to the Grammys, which was kind of funny. She won an award, and bloggers had to come accept it on her behalf because still stuck in traffic. I don't know. I feel like there's a little bit of a behind the scenes on that, because how could you be late to the Grammys? Even knowing traffic, you're gonna plan ahead, right? Everyone else got there on time. I don't know. I just and I'm sure that she probably had like maybe police escort. He's that famous and that rich, so who knows? But that was kind of a funny bit to it. But other than that, that was like kind of my weekend, was watching the Grammys. I also watched another episode of Poker Face. Have you had a chance to catch up on it or to begin?
Well, I started it, so I'm through episode 2, and it is a great show. It really is. It's the writing's great. The tone of the overall show is just really, really fun. Not fun to us as audience members, but it's really just, riveting storytelling. So congrats again to Ryan Johnson for creating this character of Charlie. What's her name? Charlie something, the Natasha Lyonne character. And I like the fact that they're using Benjamin Bratt as like this backstory, that's going to weave throughout all the episodes. So I really appreciate that. So I'm looking forward to seeing more.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's a really great show. I kind of have the same enthusiasm that I had for like Ted Lasso season one, where I'm like telling everyone to watch it because I don't want it. I think that it's such a great show. Like the guest stars are great, the acting is
Hmm.
really great. Natasha's so charismatic. All of the little like one shot actors and actresses that are in it as guest stars are really, really good. So I'm just hoping everyone can watch it. So if you haven't watched it, please go on to Peacock and watch Poker Face because it's a really good show.
I agree.
Yeah.
Completely
I
agree.
did see an interview on Selma Hayek, and she was talking about um, being really nervous presenting at the Oscars. I think she was
Hmm.
talking about how she gets really like sweaty palms. She starts shaking, like her stomach gets upset. She has to do like a shot of tequila. And it was really surprising because she's an Oscar nominated actress. She's like one of the most like heavily photographed, like, she does
Hmm.
magazines, she does interviews. And it kind of got me wondering, like, I'm kind of curious how many actors and performers have stage fright. Because I know a couple, like Janet Jackson is famously kind of has stage fright. Beyonce has stage fright, which like is crazy that someone that popular and
Right.
that entertaining could have stage fright. Um, and that they have sort of alter egos to help battle that stage fright. And so like it made me wonder like how many people that are quote famous or are great entertainers and performers, like when you get them outside of their little bubble
Hmm. Hmm.
performing in front of either on
Hmm.
stage or behind camera, are like petrified to speak in public when it's not a script or that's them being their own natural self.
I can say a lot. Well, speaking personally, I mean, performing when you get to portray a character or be someone other than yourself, it's
Hmm.
easy. But then for me, when I had to do a speech or talk as myself, like some high nerves kick in,
Yeah.
because you have to be vulnerable as yourself, I guess. I think Will Ferrell is famous for when he always does interviews. That's why he comes out in like a character all the time
Mhm.
because he doesn't like being himself on stage or in front of an audience.
Yeah. It's
So yeah.
interesting because I feel like I can like I'll do like let's say karaoke or like a speech or speaking to a large audience, things like that.
Hmm.
I don't have a problem doing that. I don't get nervous, but social situations like going to a party is what really freaks me out.
Oh.
And it's similar to what you were saying with Will Ferrell is like, well, when you have to be yourself and like engage with someone versus you're putting on a performance, right? Like
Hmm.
even if it's not a character, you can kind of pretend to be that confident person that's presenting information at work, or you can pretend to be like the professional. But when you're in a social situation and someone is trying to get to know you, you have to be sincere unless you're
Yeah.
like a psychopath. And so it's harder for some people, I think, to be able to do that. But I'm curious how stars deal with that, like how performers deal with that, of that anxiety and that that little self-saboteur, like that voice in their head
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
says, you're not good enough, or they're all going to laugh at you, things like that. So,
Yeah, I hear you. And I
but
want you
not
to
in a
put
good
a
way. They're all going to laugh at you, but not in a good way.
right. I want you to put a pin in that question. I want you to put it right there in the forefront for our guest that we have coming up later on in this episode.
That's right.
And because she's has a master's degree in performance psychology.
Oh,
So it's
perfect.
a perfect question to ask her. And she will be joining us shortly. So a couple things I watched over the weekend, just real quick. I watched the movie Tar with Kate Blanchett.
Oh, yeah.
It was a great movie. It was like just like about the composer Tar's life, Lydia Tar, and what she goes through, how she's on top of the world, and at the end she comes down to where I guess she always not ridiculed or made fun of, but she ends up at the bottom. But
Yeah.
Kate Blanchett performance was Oscar worthy, so I can very well easily see her winning the Oscar for that. To keep it heavy, I also watched the movie She Said, and by the time I was done watching the movie She Said, I was like, F Harvey Weinstein. Well, I'll say that before, but now even more because, the movie's about the
Yeah.
article or the New York Times article taking down Harvey Weinstein. Thank goodness they took him down because that guy's a piece of work.
Yeah.
Um, and then to lighten up the mood and make it a little bit lighter, I watched a movie called Lyle Lyle Crocodile, which I think it's based on a children's book. So it's about a singing, dancing crocodile called Lyle. And it was a lot of fun. The songwriters, the original songs in there were the same team that wrote Dear Evan Hansen. So it's had that sort of style to it. And when I was hearing the songs, I could hear their style in it. So it was pretty cool. That was fun.
I forgot that I actually saw this movie, and it's funny because it somewhat has two characters that are similar to us that host their own podcast. But have you seen or heard about You People?
Yes, I watched it.
Watched it.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm really curious what your thoughts are because I had very strong opinions about this.
Okay.
I would give it like 2 stars out of 5. I was greatly disappointed with the movie. And I'll tell you why. What was your rating? Out of 5.
Out of 5, like 2.5. It was right of the middle. It wasn't great. It wasn't terrible. It had its moments. I think I don't know the actor's name, but the one who played across from Jonah Hill as his podcast partner. I thought she did a great job.
Yeah, it was funny.
And she really stood out to me. That role and that character and just the whole vibe around her, I thought was really great.
Yeah, both of them. It was Mo and it's Sam J.
Mo,
the actor that played that particular character. So here's the thing: I liked the actors. I thought that they are all really great actors. I think that the thing that, and I really love the camera. So let me back up. I'm talking to you. So backing up. It's about 2 characters that fall in love. Jonah Hill, who is a Jewish American person, Lauren London, who is a Black Muslim American. And it's sort of the clash of 2 worlds, right? Sort of a retelling of like Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, with Eddie Murphy playing her father, Akbar, Nia Long playing Fatima, her mother, Julia Louis-Dreyfus playing Jonah Hill's
fantastic,
mom, and David Duchovny playing Arnold, his father. So Sam J is his best friend, co-host of his podcast. He's sort of like a hip hop head, really into hip hop culture. So sort of like a cultured white guy, if you will. Where it goes wrong for me is that it makes both sets of groups of people look ridiculous. So Julia Dreyfus, who is an amazing actor, she's so talented, was so wasted on this, plays the most vapid, sort of ignorant, just not realistic person. I know that racist people exist, and this was sort of trying to be like a liberal person who doesn't know any better. That was sort of the archetype that they were trying to make fun of. Someone who claims that they're liberal but says the wrong things, says like little microaggressions. And I think that could have been very funny, and it also could have been really enlightening for us to see a character like that. But it was just so over the top and so ridiculous. Like her accidentally pulling a Black woman's wig off. Her basically wanting to say like, can I touch your hair? It's so cool. Like, you're so cool. You're a Black girl. Like, I'm going to have Black grandbabies. That's so cool.
Yeah.
It was just very heavy handed. The Eddie Murphy and Nia Long character play conservative Muslim Americans. But then they go and do things that don't make sense. Like they're drinking alcohol, which if you were a Muslim conservative American, I would assume that that's not thing you do. Say this really quickly before Rachel comes on, our guest. But then there's certain things that they're doing that is like completely against. So like the Muslims look horrible, the Jews look horrible. The only people that look good are the kids, but it's not enough to stretch it into a really good movie. The end. 2 stars. Don't watch it.
Fair enough.
That's my 15-second review.
The only thing that really stood out to me that I didn't really like was how they had to make it a neat and tidy Disney ending.
Yeah,
they learned their lesson like that, and it wrapped up very nicely.
The writing was really bad. It was really bad writing. And like I'm not Jewish like you are, but I found some of the things that were being said kind of really in poor taste and really in poor timing, considering like the whole anti-Semitism that's going on right now, particularly in hip hop with Kanye West. I thought that it was really ill-timed and really unfair to the Jewish community to paint them in the way that they were painted. Um, and granted, it's one family that they were focusing on. They weren't saying all Jewish people are like this, but in this particular climate, I felt uncomfortable and found that it was a little cringy.
Yeah, I mean, Jonah Hill did co-write it, so I that.
Yeah.
So, Gabe, I told you to put a pin in that question. And the reason I told you that because our next guest interviewed is with Rachel Cohen. So, Rachel is she calls herself, I guess, a mental skills strategist, which is an interesting title. And it's something that until Rachel brought it up to me, I had never heard of before. So, welcome to the show, Rachel. How are you tonight?
Excellent. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes. Give us a brief rundown of what performance consulting is, just for someone like me before who might not have ever heard of this field.
Definitely. So, what it is mental skills, strategies, and techniques that basically help people to authentically perform, which leads you to optimal performance. So, usually the people that I work with are artists, athletes, business people, or those in high risk careers where managing emotions play a really important role.
That's really cool. I mean, I know you have a very long track record working within different fields. I was going to say you wore many hats, but I think it might be more apropos to say you've worn many shoes in your career. So I know you have your BA in dance and a emphasis in musical theater. You have your MA in your performance psychology. And you recently did which I thought was really cool, a workshop for the San Francisco Opera, which was called, hold on, I have it right here, the Collaborative Mindset and Empathy Training. Can you give us a little deeper what that means for collaborative mindset and empathy training?
Sure. So what I was doing was working with the front of house for the San Francisco Opera, which is also the San Francisco Ballet at the War Memorial Opera House. And so I was basically giving like an overview of performance training and psychology to the people, the staff of the front of house. So giving them the ideas on what performance psychology is, and then giving them specific things to do, and then we would break out into moments and practice.
Very interesting. And so I'm curious, Rachel, for those of us that aren't involved in the industry, such as yourself, I'm a little bit surprised that entertainers or performers, people that are in high risk jobs like in business, would have that sort of anxiety, because I think that from the outside in, we always see people like, let's say, Beyonce, and think, oh, she was just born with it, right? She's just a natural born entertainer. How could she have stage fright? But how does that occur, that someone who is able to go on stage and just really blow away an audience also have stage fright at the same time?
So I think what we see when we see a performer just being their like best self is that they're in flow. And that's when a lot of like body function kind of stop and they are just in their element. But a lot of that has to do with all the prep work that goes into doing that performance. So someone may not necessarily be their best version of themselves on stage if they haven't gone through all of these steps, like knowing the lines, knowing the words, knowing the choreography. So then they're confident in those pieces. So they're not even thinking about the steps and the music and the words, so that they can actually perform.
Nice.
So when people have to go present an award or have to give an interview as themselves, may they just lack that confidence in doing that?
The confidence, yes. And there are things that you can do like before you have a presentation. So there you can do a number of things like meditation or some breathing techniques, or if you know there are certain parts of your presentation that you're worried about, there can be physical cues that you can do that will kind of calm you down. So you can like tap your watch, or you can, put your hair behind your ear. And this is like a physical cue, like, take a minute. Okay. But people don't know, they don't see it, they don't know it. It's something very like subtle, but it's a reminder of these techniques that people can practice ahead of time.
So now I'm going to watch people when they give interviews or speeches to see if they're doing any sort of little tricks like that.
You'd be surprised.
So I'm curious, how does those skill sets, how like, let's say someone in our audience who is watching our podcast or listening, how can they take some of those skill sets and apply them to, their everyday life when they have maybe social anxiety, or maybe they're anxious because they have to give a presentation at work? What are some, you mentioned a few tips right now of what they could do. What would be like one good takeaway for someone who's watching this podcast that could help them feel more comfortable going into those type of situations?
Oh, sure. I would say probably the easiest and most simple yet most effective thing that somebody can do is a number of breathing techniques. And what I have people do is like take 3 deep breaths, like, breathe in through your nose, breathe out through your mouth or your nose, depending on where you're at and, how appropriate it is if people are looking at that. But when you do that, so you can breathe 3 times, and then move on with whatever you're doing. But there are other added things that you can do too. So another technique is to, when you're breathing through your nose, you do what's called diaphragmatic breathing. So when you breathe in, you're expanding your diaphragm, kind of like singers, so that your blood oxygenates better. That's one of the reasons why you actually breathe through your nose, because it gets to your cells. And oxygenates your blood a bit better. That's why a lot of people in yoga breathe through their nose. But what you can do as you breathe out is what's called autogenic training. So you're breathing in like you normally do. But as you breathe out, you do this thing called autogenic training, which is like systematically relaxing certain parts of your body. So you're going to like talk to yourself and be like, unwrinkle your forehead, relax your cheeks, unclench your jaw. Breathe again, breathe, through your nose and out, relax your shoulders, unclench your pelvis, relax your quad. So you can kind of like talk to your body, I would say top to bottom, and relax things and then do it again. And because what I find too is that you'll breathe in and like relax this part, do another breath, relax the next part, do another breath, relax the next, half of your body. By the time you get to another breath, everything else has gone back to what it normally does, which is tense up. So you can keep repeating this because your body just wants to go to what it's used to, which is tension in certain places. And so you're teaching yourself that you're basically tricking your mind. When you breathe and relax your body, you're basically calming yourself. And so your body's going to be calm. So it tells your mind to be calm.
Nice.
Wow.
Oh, interesting. I have anxiety kind of in a generalized, non-performance related sense. I was sharing with Danny that I can give speeches, I can, be on a podcast and I'm fine, but it's social situations that give me anxiety where I'm, having to be my sincere or authentic self. Not that I'm not here, but I feel like, when you're developing relationships, it's a different type of or aspect of your personality that's on display versus when you're on or you're performing. I've heard of a lot of performers that have a sort of second personality, and they sometimes even name that alter ego. Have you ever come into performers that have that? Like famously, Beyonce has the everyday person, and then Sasha Fierce, who is, the great entertainer. Have you ever run into anyone in your teachings and learnings that has something similar to that?
I have, and I think part of it has to do with getting comfortable with who you really are. So until you can get to that point, you create the person that you'd like to be. So this idealized self. So hopefully, eventually you actually become that person that you've created. But until then, you kind of fake it till you make it.
Right.
That's what I've always heard. Fake it till you make
Right?
it. It's like my mantra. Well, you've also have a background in theater and dance, and you recently were in production of Rent up there in San Francisco.
Wow.
And you were the dance captain, correct?
I was, yes.
I've always wondered, what does a dance captain do?
Sure. So really, I'm in charge of knowing all the choreography for every single person on stage.
Wow.
And then in knowing that, if somebody gets sick or hurt or something happens, there's a new person who comes in. So it's oftentimes people they're understudies, they're a swing. Mm-hmm. So it's communicating with the people that are coming in to make sure they know, where to go and what to do. And in the production that I was in, almost every ensemble member was also double cast as a main role. And so most performances were different. So every single time we performed, it was like, hey, there's 4 of us. Hey, there's 8 of us. Oh, I have a solo today. So knowing where to be, especially for safety, but also so that you can keep the artistic, basically so that you're honoring the people who've created the production. You don't want to just make something up. You want to make sure that you're in line with the goal of the production and the look of the production.
It's really cool.
How was that participating in that musical? I think that Rent was sort of like the musical for our generation, right? So, similar to how Hamilton is for like a younger audience today, or, now been a couple years. Growing up, Rent was just like so powerful and meaningful to people in like the Gen X, generation. How is it like being part of that cast?
It was absolutely incredible. This cast, I have only one other time had a cast like this where every single person came in and was just committed and loved what they were doing. They were prepared. They sincerely cared about each and every person. And so, somebody would be like, get a minute's notice that they were going to be the lead. So everyone would run around and like get Angel's makeup on because, all of a sudden Angel is not in his normal stage makeup. He is now going to be a woman. So, 3 of us are doing hair and makeup and like making sure that the costumes are in order. And so I think there was such camaraderie and collaboration and a love of theater, but also a love of each other. And I feel like it was just the most ideal situation. I hadn't done theater in years, and this was a perfect way to like enter back into the scene.
Nice. When you mentioned Angel, the thought occurred to me, wow, let's say you're another character and you're dancing, and then to have to go into Angel and then say, you're gonna have to do this choreography, but like in heels. And how intimidating that would be. And then it occurred to me that, what's that famous quote that about Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, like, oh, she did everything, but like in heels and backwards. And, that you have to have for, people that dance in heels is I can't even imagine it.
It's wild. I mean, jumping and cartwheeling as our production had it. Yeah, it's definitely, that's another reason why you have a dance captain to go over like fight choreography. And so anything that's dangerous, like jumping off of a table or a punch or a push, we go over all of those things every single night before the show to practice so that nobody actually gets hurt.
Yeah. That's really cool. Yeah. Fight choreography. That's fun.
It
is. Now, did you how would you say that you've taken from your theater background, and how would you say you've used that knowledge and that experience to translate it into your performance consulting?
Well, I think that's just one piece that I use, and which is why I feel like I'm in the right place right now. In the past, I wasn't sure that all of the random things that I did were valuable. But what I'm finding is that, the restaurant management that I did, the theater product, performing and like back of house, tech work that I've done, but also like the track and field and the cross country and the marathon training. All of these experiences help me to have compassion and empathy for my clients. And so that I can not only relate in theory, but I can actually relate to what they're going through, their process. And so when somebody, shares information with me, it's very, very often I share a story of something that I've done in the past, not to boast, but just to relate so that they know that I know what they're talking about. So like, it's much more, people trust you much more when they know that you've gone through what they've gone through.
Absolutely. I kind of think of, I've kind of battled with weight and weight loss and weight gain. And when I'm looking for a trainer, I often look at someone who's lost weight themselves, because how can you relate to me if you've always been fit and muscular your whole life and you don't know what it's like to have to lose a large amount of weight? Or similarly, my therapist that I see also has dealt with mental health in her personal life. And so I have an additional sense of security that it's, I'm talking to someone that really understands what I'm going through as well. So I very much agree with what you were saying there.
Thank you.
What would you say to someone who's thought or thinking about doing something like this, but there's always been like that stigma around going to therapy or seeing someone in that realm of psychology stuff? What would you say to them to get them over that, to go ahead and, just do it for your own well-being?
Well, one, I would say that, performance psychology, although the word psychology is in the terminology, it's really focused on strategies and techniques that are mentally focused, but we're not diving into eating disorders or any of these things. I'm not qualified to talk about that. What we're really trying to do is to get you in the mental space to do the best, to be the best version of yourself, to do the best that you can. So you've made it thus far without any of this guidance, but just imagine how far you can go, how elevated, and how, if you're trying to make a jump, like you want to shave off time in a marathon, or if you're doing an ultra marathon and you've hit a wall, this is a way that you can push yourself beyond where you've already been. And so I think, what's the harm? What's the harm in seeing how far you can go?
That's true.
Do you find it more helpful for your potential clients to come in with a particular goal in mind? Or do you also help assess what that next level or what that next goal would be? So, maybe they've hit a plateau and they feel a little just like, maybe they can't verbalize it, but they just kind of feel like, they can't do any more. And can you help them kind of formulate that into what their next goal would be?
Definitely. So I have had clients where they came in and said, like, I want help with this. But for example, my first client came in and they wanted help with performance anxiety. Well, we solved that in 2 hours and then we were done. and so for me, I was like, that is not a good lesson for my first client, because that's going to give me a very big ego. But what we realized is that in discussing all of that, we like the process. There were so many other topics we could, talk about. And so the next session, it was like, well, okay, so we handled that. What else is there? And so because it's like individualized and because it's self-directed, the person will just start talking and I will like pull out certain things that I hear and see and mirror. And I think naturally the topics and the goals come out like organically. So we'll just talk about something and then I'll repeat it and like ask them to expand. And then through that, I create homework for them to do between this session and the next session. So it's almost like I don't really know what's going to happen in the session till it happens. So I don't have homework or a plan because who knows what's going to happen. So it is actually really exciting. I have to be ready for anything.
So I'm curious, do you have clients outside of your region? Do you do like consulting over video, or do you mainly stick to Northern California? If one of our audience members down here in Southern California or in Las Vegas, or really anywhere in the world, wanted to have you as a consultant, would that be available for them through,
Zoom or
Zoom?
something?
Absolutely. So I started this consulting business during, COVID, where people weren't meeting or weren't comfortable meeting. And so, yes, many of my clients were actually, my first client was in LA. Another one of my clients is in San Diego. And so depending on the person, we would meet in person, or we would meet on Zoom, or we would talk on the telephone, or a mixture of all of those things. So really, it just, whatever is most effective for the person is what we'll do.
Awesome. And so my next question would then be, if someone is interested in getting some consultation by you, how would they find more information, or could you direct them to learn more about that?
Oh, sure. So I have a website. It's Run Rachel Run, RunRachelRun.com. And so it has a bio and some testimonials, but there's also a spot where you can get more information and book a session with me just to chat and discuss whether we can work together and whether we would be a good fit.
Excellent.
Very cool. Well, we are a pop culture show, so I'm just going to ask you some lightning questions real quick. Just for what's your favorite movie, favorite music, favorite musical, favorite book, anything like that you can just, share with us. Give us a little bit more of who Rachel is.
Oh, so many things. My gosh. Okay. Let's see. Favorite musical, Hamilton. I've seen it too many times, but yet not enough times. Favorite book right now, I would say Jeanette McCurdy's book, I'm Glad My Mother Is Dead.
Oh.
It was just most recent favorite book. Well written, so raw and beautiful, and don't let the title scare you. It's because I was on a plane reading it, and I thought I was being judged, but I just let it go and kept reading the book. Let's see, favorite movie. Oh gosh, probably Roman Holiday with Audrey Hepburn.
Nice.
What else?
Music. What are you listening to right now?
Ooh, right now, I've had a pause on music, but Radiohead. I've been looking back and listening to old Radiohead. And then also some musical theater, because I've been seeing a lot of shows. So I've been brushing up on my Mean Girls and Dear Evan Hansen that's touring right now.
Oh, very cool. Did you see that the Grammys, we were just talking earlier about the Grammys, and that best musical theater or artist was Into the Woods 2022 release won it. I was surprised. I didn't even know they had a new Broadway recording of that.
Oh, that is surprising.
Yeah, I did hear that. And of course, Dan and I did Into the Woods in high school, went to a performing arts school. He was Jack. And so, yeah, you were Jack?
I think it was the old man.
The old man. That's
the
right.
Old man, yeah.
That's right. You were cool. Sorry, I'm wrong.
I had a fake beard then. Yeah.
That's right. That was a cool. Yes, that was cool. So I think Into the Woods has always been something really special for me, because one, I learned all of the music early on, but also it's such a tough score. Sondheim creates such beautiful, interesting, really hard music. And so when performed well, it's kind of a miracle because it's so challenging.
Yeah, I would agree.
Who would you say is one of your favorite performers?
Ooh, favorite
in musical theater, while we're on that topic?
I would probably say Sutton Foster. I saw her in a number of shows. Thoroughly Modern Millie, although it's such a weird story, the music is fantastic. She is so authentic and wonderful and well-rounded and kind of quirky, which I appreciate because I am too. And so she's relatable and down to earth, but just a rock star. She's just a fantastic human, and wrote a really great book during COVID about crafting and how every show and movie or show that she's ever done, she was doing a craft during downtime. And so each finished product came from like working on a series or a musical. And so she brought together these two art forms that were really cool.
That's pretty cool.
Has writing a book ever occurred to you? You seem to have lived a very diverse life with your background and your ability to give advice to people on how to be a better performer, a stronger performer. Has that ever occurred to you that maybe book writing might be in your future?
It has occurred to me. Early on, I thought I would write short stories because I have lived in lots of lives and in lots of places. And there's some really funny things that have happened that I'm like, are you kidding? You can't make this stuff up. And so I have started writing like a book of short stories. But I think, just for fun. But I think now that I'm working with clients and creating workshops, I think writing a book about that and about my transformation and how I got to this point could be helpful for others. So we'll see.
I think so. Well, thank you very much, Rachel, for taking some time to chat with us today. Everyone, our audience will be on pins and needles waiting for your book. So not to put any pressure on you or anything, but you better start getting in front of the computer and typing that up for us. Well, thanks again, Rachel, for hopping on with the Pop Cult X with us. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was nice meeting you.
Lovely to meet you too.
That was a really great interview. I mean, thank you so much for having your high school friend on our podcast.
It's really cool. I mean, yeah, it's weird. I mean, to think that back then I was playing an old man, but now I am an old man. So
coming in with the dad jokes. I mean, I found that here at Pop Cult X, we obviously have our spin on things because we're part of the Gen X generation. Mm-hmm. And Rachel, obviously being one of your contemporaries, is from that same generation. And it really speaks to, I think, her story on how we as a generation determined that, we weren't going to be like our parents and stick to one thing and stick into one thing and like focus on it and then do what we were passionate about when we retired. As she mentioned, she was a restaurant manager, dance captain, performer, consultant. And I think it's made us that much stronger as a person, knowing that we've had all these different experiences and we can really draw on them and then do what we're passionate about. I mean, she obviously has a great passion for consulting and helping people reach their next level. Whereas, us, we've had our corporate gigs, we've, done, IT, we've done banking and finance, but then we also have our creative side with the photography and now with this podcast. And we're seeing, that we can have fun and enjoy ourselves, even though, it wasn't the one thing that we initially at 19 said, oh, we have to go and start a podcast or be on the radio. This is something we can start now. So I very much appreciate that we've been able to do this podcast and that we found our little audience that likes to listen and watch us every now and then on YouTube and on Apple Music or Spotify. So thank you to everyone who has listened. Like and subscribe if this is your first time listening to our podcast. We definitely appreciate it. Hit us up on all of our social media, on Twitter, Instagram, etc. And any other closing words, Danny?
No, that's it. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you at WonderCon.
All right, stay safe.
Bye everyone.